So writing a VSL on any platform is not difficult. First of all, positioning is the hook. Do not look at the hook as the big idea. Look at it as the way that people get to self-identify with your ad, with the messaging in your ad. If I can't mirror neuron or empathize, see myself in, relate my story to, compare, you haven't hooked me. Not in the most literal psychological sense of the word. When you twist the knife, you're agitating emotion, but it's random emotion. It's not as succinct as you think about the problem you're trying to help people solve. Now, yeah, people have fear about their problems, but that's not the only way we make decisions, and that's not the best way to get our attention. Now, I want you to think about this. Most direct response campaigns convert at less than 5%. Most convert at less than 2%. Why is that? Why do, relatively speaking, so few people get turned on by direct response marketing? And why did TikTok, as a advertising engine platform, how did it grow faster than any other advertising platform that came before it? And not by doing what everybody else was doing, but by completely reinventing the culture of advertising in this new modern era with these things. So, what we think about in terms of VSLs needs to be updated. You can't look at a VSL the same way because that means, oh, I'm going to write a 15-minute VSL, 30-minute VSL, an hour VSL. Piss off. You could do that if you want. Do you need to do that to convert? Nope. How much on a percentage of 0 to 100? How much do you need a long form VSL to convert? Zero. And I'm not guessing. And I don't want to get into the details of that conversation. However, I will say there are easy ways to train algorithms, accounts, and all the platforms are different. So, for instance, TikTok. One video can go viral if the account is brand new. But as you make videos and TikTok is used to starting to push yours out, you will see that the numbers, first you're in that 200 view hell. And then you get to 500, and oh, some broke 1,000, and then some broke 10,000, and then all of a sudden some broke 50 and 100, and then a million, and then 2 million. That's how it happens. And it gets very consistent, whereas in the beginning, it's very inconsistent. Also, different from Meta, TikTok, YouTube. On TikTok, when you get something that works, do 20 of them with the same voiceover, different production, and many of those will go viral and start making you lots of money on the shop. Now, how do we do it? Because whether it's TikTok, Meta, which Meta's always been trying to be TikTok, always trying to been, it's been trying to pattern after TikTok in the way that they uh, register events. So you watch a video for a few seconds, that's an event. 10 seconds, that's an event. On Meta, if you click see more, tap see more, that's an event. A like, share, comment, those are events. And the more events on platform, the more people like that, the Cappy and Pixel show those ads too, which increases the efficacy of those ads on the front end. Now, once they click off the platform on Meta, you got your landing page, yeah, but you also want to have bridge pages, interstitial pages, your advertorials, sales tutorials, quizzes, assessments, lead mags, tripwires, the things that are going to webinar landing page, the things that are going to help train the pixel even more. Now, they click on, there's an event. They stay on the page, there's an event. They start scrolling, that's an event. They stay on for minutes, that's an event. They stay on for 10 minutes, that's an event. There's lots of events that you can program. Condition your account, your pixel to understand, to look for, to reach more out to. That's how we establish TAM, expand TAM. Now, and get our acquisition costs down. Now, what does that actually look like? Because the same with YouTube, you have 5 seconds before skippable. So TikTok, Meta, YouTube, they're all about attention. And then what you do with the attention is what matters, because just getting attention doesn't make you money. Well, actually it can, but it's just not as consistent. So let's take a look at that. Let's just take a look at this supplement. This is Saffron RX from Twycrocha. I could do lion's mane. This shit is amazing. This particular form, it's helped rebuild nerve growth in the gut, second brain, the first brain, help repair the vagus nerve, not Las Vegas. But this stuff right here, mental health in my lifetime was not something that was talked about 20 years ago. Now it's commonplace. Now we understand that if you have anxiety, it's going to lower your quality of life. You have panic attacks all the time, it's going to lower the quality of your life. So this stuff right here, This stuff's amazing. And I take it multiple times a day. I honestly wish these were gummies because I'd be popping more of them. This works better than magnesium glycinate, ashwagandha, KSM-66, Shodan, whatever. All lemon balm, all the GABA stuff. Saffron, bioavailable. Remember, it doesn't matter if what it is. If it's not bioavailable, it doesn't work. And also remember, my grandfather invented bioavailability in the way that we use it. The pioneering and chelation of minerals, coal processing, and then he invented time release, 1952, for the corporation that I worked for, who then sold it to pharmaceutical companies, and that's why he didn't get the credit. Although I have the newspaper clippings, and I did put it up on copy prompting. There's one up there. Now, let's figure out how to position this, right? So, what are things people do for um, mental health? We take SSRIs, supplements, yeah. Uh, People with ADHD, who have lots of anxiety, dopamine is the bigger issue, and dopamine, serotonin, oopsies, regulation. Now, so there's some idea of who we're talking with. People like me who have autism. Uh, I had panic attacks just making eye contact with somebody. I wish this shit was in my life back then as a kid. Now, positioning wise, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of symbols just right there. Um, Mental health, stress, what a simple frog in tepid water brought to a boil. A symbol of stress. You ever feel like you're the frog that's being brought to a boil and then dies because it didn't notice? That's stress. That's anxiety. Those are panic attacks, right? That's positioning. I just hooked you very simply. Now, I could say this is my Prozac. This is my SSRI, and it doesn't have side effects, and there's no dependency. In fact, this helps regulate serotonin and dopamine. And those are the feelers of life. So let's like dive into the 80% a little bit. All right. So what are dopamine and serotonin in our daily experience of life? And why, when those two chemicals are dysregulated, does the world feel unsafe, confusing, scary, and completely foreign, right? So, oopsies. Can he spell foreign? No, he can't, ladies and gentlemen. That and diarrhea. Oh, yeah, duh. Now, the other thing here is what's causing the dysregulation. But first, let's get to this. So let's just start there. So feeling energized, drawn towards things, curious in the face of danger. The future stops pulling you forward, right? So another thing to think about there is drive. So the desire and the drive to do things. What does that mean? That means I'm blunted. What does that mean? That means I have too much serotonin, not enough dopamine. So I already know that because I've done my 80%. I've written about this stuff for years. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't understand why those two neurochemicals transmitters are so important. So we could say, so essentially, when dopamine is low and serotonin is too high, my desire and drive is blunted, correct? And and that's regardless of SSRIs. When SSRIs are added into the equation, that process can become dangerous, correct? So we're going to start. This is investigative journalism, right? We have to figure out what the true core here is so that we can align our mechanism. And I already know my mechanism. That's really where your research starts. Because how do I know to research serotonin and dopamine about this stuff? Well, you'll find out. So, okay, now it's giving us what happens. You stop caring. When I was dealing with this type of deregulation at its peak, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about making money. I didn't care about helping people. I didn't care about being an advertising maverick. I didn't care about seeing 9 months ahead of the curve at the very least, so I knew how to constantly be at the peak of paid advertising effectiveness. None of that mattered to me. Going to the beach didn't matter to me. Go on a walk, go have sex didn't matter to me because I had no dopamine and way too much serotonin. So I was like Wally in my body, right? But I didn't have anxiety and panic attacks at the level that I used to until I started weaning off. Now, had somebody told me years ago, hey, this is what's going to happen if you stay on an SSRI too long, I would have been like, keep that away from me. I was put on it for lupus, not even about panic attacks and all that. That came from being on citalopram. So, and here it's going into that. That's why Dead End Side is actually the name of an ebook I'm writing, and editing at this point. So we have some good information here. Now let's get Saffron into the conversation. So I'm taking Saffron RX from Toy Quattro. Oopsies. I can't spell save my life. Right, they'll figure it out. Now, irrational when we're talking about mental health is a word that we need to use. When I had a panic attack, it's very irrational. I'm not like, oh, I got this figured out, guys. No, it's extremely irrational. Being able to logic anything is not there. And if you've ever had a panic attack or multiple panic attacks, it's traumatic. And you will do anything to get rid of it, just like you'll do anything to lose weight or you'll do anything to stay alive. You'll do anything to get regulation back because when you had massive serotonin dopamine dysregulation, the world is scary. Ask very clear questions because now it doesn't mean we're gonna just let this write it. It's already written a lot with me, so it's aware of this conversation pretty well. But so crocins, saffronol, uh, I have a hard time saying that one. Picrocrosin. These are all nutrients that nobody's getting from their food. You can say, in a hook, in the positioning. The positioning is the hook. You have anxiety attacks because your food is dead. You having panic attacks because the food that you're putting in your body doesn't have the nutrients that makes it even possible to live panic and anxiety free. It's impossible. You can't have it if your serotonin and dopamine are not regulated. If you don't have enough of one and enough of the other, you will always feel afraid, scared. There'll be a lack of drive. There'll be a lack of desire. There'll be a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of constantly second guessing everything that you do, right? Boom. This is how we get into these conversations. Now, okay. So we've got some idea. Are those everything? Because it's not. So there's a lot going on. Now, what are these nutrients doing in my brain that's causing that's dampening my panic attacks and even insomnia, which is true. It's also because of this, but that's just between you and me. Okay, so now it's giving us some ideas. Got it. Okay, so now we can start playing around with the copy because the problem, the deeper core, is massive dysregulation between serotonin and dopamine. Doesn't matter how. It could be from social media, it could be from SSRIs, it could be from drinking too much, from not getting enough sleep, and just being too stressed out in general. So now we got all that. Okay, so if I want to start a tic tac shot video with, okay, so that's a positioning prompt, what I just gave it right here, right? Make sure you can see that because when you do your 80%, you understand the mechanism, you understand the deeper core. Now you can start working on awareness-based positioning. And definitely one of the things that we also want to know is, what are mental health archetypes who would even care about potentially taking Saffron RX or any supplement for that matter? Because if we're not clear on that, then the tonality, the copy can be great, but the story, the specifics are off. It won't get the hand raising. It won't get universal hand raising. Universal hand raising is when multiple archetypes telling different stories about the same thing can all universally raise their hand. So that's what we're really going for. We're not going for broad and niche. We are going for universal archetypal resonance. And that's very different than, looking at an avatar standpoint and all the other direct response bullshit. Okay, so we've got some archetypes. Great. Let's conscious optimizer. Let's see 10 times opening limes for number 4. I track my dopamine levels like most people track steps. And yeah, this little capsule made the cut. Hate that. I don't wait until I'm burnt out to fix things. This keeps my brain balanced before it starts spiraling. All right. How about we need more shock and awe to grab people's attention? So instead of qualifier opening sentences that link to the shock value, start at the shock value times 10. And this is how you position prompt, right? So SSRIs killed my drive. This brought it back. SS killed my drive. This brought it back, right? That's positioning. So, and it's also very easy to remember to do a couple lines, cut, do a couple lines, cut. It doesn't have to be in one take, although you can easily do it in one take. You don't need a prescription to fix your serotonin. You don't need a prescription for your panic attacks. You don't need a prescription for anxiety. You don't need a prescription for insomnia, right? So I can tell all those different archetypal stories, but find that universal peak of awareness that all people feel about the same thing in their own story, in their own way, in their own interpretation, in their own experience. And that's what we get to do here is figure out what is the most universal experience. And then when we test, we know what we're looking for. And then we know what becomes scalable, right? So, okay, I like number 9, let's say. Let's flesh out number 9 into a full TikTok shop script. No storyboarding, please. You schmuck, you did it anyway. My panic attacks gone. My motivation back. I sleep better. I feel things again, like real things, without side effects, without withdrawal. I could say all that in 100% integrity. Real. For real. For life. All right. Uh, right. I want the full script starting with that line. Line by line. No storyboarding or formatting. This is what Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about your mental health. I was on SSRIs, citalopram, for 2 years, and yeah, it numbed the anxiety, but it also numbed everything else. I didn't feel sad, but I didn't feel joy either. I didn't feel panic, but I didn't feel connected. I could see a beautiful woman, but Junior down there didn't care and didn't feel a thing, right? So I can ad lib it, I can add to it. There's lots that I can do with this, and then I can say times 3, right? So now I'm getting more alternatives to that, and I can play with each archetypal sentence that way, and unlimited to what I can now. If I want to do longer form, I break it down into sections or chapters, and I tell it to what I want each story arc to be, and then to unpack each one before I ask it to write a chapter, right? Or yeah, a chapter, and then let it know it needs to seamlessly go from the end of the end line here and the beginning line here. There's nothing. There has to be total flow. So and that's easy to do. But you can see right here, this is all easy to do, and this is copy prompting. So, if you got any questions, let me know. And I am going to be doing more of these now that this group is private and going to be properly monetized. Thank you.